The leaders of Russia and China have pushed back against pressure from the West and demanded an end to NATO's expansion. This comes amid growing tensions over the crisis in Ukraine. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has met with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing. Both sides say their relationship is at a historical high point. They're pledging closer cooperation on energy supplies and on stemming major protest movements. The two leaders will later attend the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympic Games. Journalist Fabian Kretschmer is in Beijing and has been following the two leaders meeting. Fabian, Putin and Xi making a joint call to limit NATO expansion today. Sum up that message for us.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's really important to see that this statement contains 5,300 words. It's very lengthy. It's quite surprising that because most observers expected more a symbolic deal, energy deal. But this is really a strong political statement. Yeah, they're against the NATO expansion. They basically blame the NATO for creating an ideological Cold War mentality, while of course I'm sure that, for example, the US would blame China and Russia exactly for doing the same, namely forming a bloc against the West. So I would say it's really a very strong political statement, and of course, yeah, we have to wait a little bit to get a deeper analysis on that because, yeah, it's all quite fresh right now.
Indeed, but put it in context for us. Is China now directly involving itself in the Russia-Ukraine issue?
Well, it's a display of solidarity. China is backing Russia, and also vice versa. Russia pledged solidarity towards China for the Taiwan conflict. That's also, I mean, there are a lot of similarities. But the official stance of Beijing is that it wants a peaceful solution for the Ukraine. But I mean, of course, for them, it's very important to follow it closely. I don't think they want to get involved, but they want to gather knowledge, tactical knowledge, because they can apply it to how they deal with their own crisis, namely the Taiwan crisis.
Now, the two leaders have also pledged cooperation to stem political protest movements. What would that involve?
Well, I mean, concrete measures we still have to see, but I mean, just 1 hour before Hong Kong, in Hong Kong, there was one protester arrested, and I mean that's basically what Beijing is doing. Beijing blames color revolution, apparently started by the US without showing evidence. I must note, for you know, creating instability, and Russia is doing the same for Ukraine. So they share the same position on that, and they don't want interference by other countries that also involves, for example, Xinjiang. China doesn't want any interference by the West for their human rights violations. Same for Russia. So I would say it's a continuation and a very confident propagating of their message, and I didn't expect that in that sharpness, actually.
All right, Fabian, thank you. Journalist Fabian Kretschmer for us in Beijing. Well, for a look at the European response, let's cross over to Brussels and DW correspondent Jack Parrick. Jack, China's now supporting Putin's call that NATO stop any further expansion. What kind of reaction has that prompted in Brussels?
Well, I don't think we're going to get any specific reaction from NATO, to be honest with you, Rebecca, and that's because we've heard the very same things as we've seen this troop build-up on the Russian border with Ukraine. We have heard from NATO saying over and over again, and they indeed submitted a letter outlining the NATO position, which says that any country can become a NATO member if they should want to. This is this open door policy that NATO holds, which says that every sovereign country has a sovereign right to join the NATO, any sort of military alliance that they want, should they wish to do that for their security. And obviously that is a red line for the Russians. They are very concerned that potentially Ukraine and Georgia would eventually, it's not likely to happen anytime soon, but could potentially join a military alliance that they see as antagonistic, and that would bring that alliance right up to the Russian border.
So you think NATO unlikely to respond publicly, but they are likely to be worried about this development, surely? Or do you think the view is in Brussels that China is just helping Putin out in a difficult situation?
I think this was an expected statement, to be honest with you. We saw Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, his first meeting in about just under 2 years with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is a sort of big moment for the two of them. And as we've seen this tension grow between Russia and the West over the troop build-ups, but also there's tensions with China as well. It's important to say there are no diplomatic missions from a number of countries, including the UK, the US, Australia and others, to the Beijing Olympics this time over human rights concerns. And China's pretty upset about that. So what we're seeing is sort of two countries, two big international players that are having big troubles with the West sort of come together. As Fabian was saying, this is a huge document. It covers many, many things, agreements on nuclear, on outer space, on dealing with biological waste, etc. And I think it is a strong statement. It's significant that these two countries, these two big global players that are really at loggerheads with the West, are coming out and trying to make this strong statement together.
Jack, thank you. DW's Jack Parrock from Brussels.